call the meeting to order. Jen, will you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Corbin.
Here.
Commissioner Waldner. Commissioner Waldner. Commissioner Thill.
Here.
Mayor Denner.
Here. We have the agenda.
I'm here, Jen.
All right, thank you.
We have the agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So approved. Second.
Any further comment or discussion? Not hearing any. Jen, will you take roll call?
Commissioner Waldner. He said aye.
I didn't hear it.
There we go. Commissioner Thill.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin.
Aye.
And Mayor Denner.
Aye. Not seeing anything under appearances acknowledgement, we'll move into the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
I have a question on building permit reports. This is just, when I was reading through that part of the agenda, there were some building permit reports where we didn't charge them a fee. We had agreed on that.
Mm-hmm.
Did we set a timeline on that? How long people would have before we would say there's no longer fee? And I only ask that because I think it's only fair for people to know that they can only have so long or get under the wire if that's what we set. If we can't answer that tonight, if we can't remember, we can look back. But we should publicize that either through meeting or somehow so that people know if they're going to ask for building permits and it's related to. Come on, help me out there.
The flood.
Flood. Thank you. Then they should know that they need to get that request in.
Well, when I made the motion, I thought it was for 1 year from the time.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I
Okay.
made the motion on, is they had a year to apply for the building permit if it was flood related.
Okay. If that's what it is, that's great.
Yes. Commissioner Johnson, this Chad Comas, I would say yes. I'm almost certain it was a year. And then in addition, there was additional language included that at the discretion of the building official, if something comes in past a year, then we'd review the merits of the request and so on and offer that. So, yes.
Thank you. I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments, discussion? Not hearing any. Jen, will you take roll call vote?
Commissioner Corbin.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner.
Aye.
Commissioner Thill.
Aye.
And Mayor Denner.
Aye. Not seeing anything under unfinished business, we'll move into the new business. Item number 1, Jen, authorize the mayor to sign agreement, South Dakota Department of Transportation, AIP 3-46-0029-019-2020 CARES Act.
I'm going to make a few comments. Chad's going to jump in if he has anything additional, okay? You have before you pass-through agreement, if you will, with the state of South Dakota. I would simply draw your attention to page 1, section B. Funding will be provided at 100% federal share with no local match required and will be available to support capital, operating, and other expenses to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19. Also on page 1, the section 1 payment reflects the $30,000 that we have been discussing since day 1. Also references the AIP project number. Page 3 of the agreement, section 9, references the 2 CFR Part 200 Subpart F audit that this is potentially subject to. That audit is subject to dollars over $750,000 in a year if you have that much federal funding, which due to ongoing airport projects, we normally see. So again, subject to audit. And then finally, number 17 on page 4, the effective date of this agreement is May 20th, 2020. We have, as discussed, have 4 years from this date to use these funds. The agreement is with the state of South Dakota because all of our federal funding is flowed through the state of South Dakota. They are the pass-through. That's what I got. Anything else, Chad?
I don't.
Okay. Do I have a motion to authorize the mayor to sign agreement, South Dakota Department of Transportation, AIP 3-46-0029-019-2020 CARES Act?
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any further comments or discussion? Not hearing any. Jen, will you take roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Thill?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Denner?
Aye. Under item 2, I think we got Kaylee on the line from the community center. Authorize the mayor to submit grant application, South Dakota Department of Social Services Child Care Service, South Dakota License or Registered Child Care Program COVID-19 funding. Kaylee, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay, did you want to bring us up to speed on that one, please?
Yes, I sure can. So this grant information was provided me, given to me through the Department of Social Services. And the funding amount that we might get is based upon the number of children that we care for. So each program within South Dakota is going to be different. So there's a chance that we might get some money or that we might not get some money. We will know the amount of money we get after the grant is submitted, and then up to 30 days is our time frame when we should know how much money we'll get for the grant.
Okay. Is that it, Kaylee?
That is all, I think, unless Nick wanted to jump in and add anything.
No, that basically sums up the grant. A lot of it comes down to is we might get something or we might not. The reason why we put it in a little closer is just because our board doesn't meet until Thursday, so we wanted to try to get it approved because the deadline is June 22nd to get it in.
Okay. Do I have a motion to authorize the mayor to submit grant application, South Dakota Department of Social Services Child Care Service, South Dakota Licensed or Registered Child Care Programs, COVID-19 funded?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Did you get that? Okay.
I got it.
Okay.
Just a comment on my end, if you will, all of this COVID grant or dollars that we're seeing, these opportunities are all federally funded. So even though this application here before you also says the state is the pass-through on these things. Any funds that we would get as part of this would also be subject to our 2 CFR Part 200 Subpart F grant and the appropriate audit.
Any further comments or discussion? Not hearing any.
Oh, did you have somebody?
Jen, do you want to take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thill?
Aye.
Mayor Denner?
Aye. Item 3, Chad, you want to bring us up to speed on the approve first reading and set data hearing. Ordinance number 1623, amend Appendix B zoning, Article 2, District Regulation, Section 17.16.
Yes, I can, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission present and online, and members of the public. Thank you. Included in the agenda packet is unapproved or draft minutes from the Planning Commission from June 9th, 2020, and a draft of Ordinance 1623 itself for first reading, and then a notice of public hearing for proposed to be June 29th. So what this is a proposal was brought forth to the Planning Commission at their last meeting, June 9th, to add to the list of conditional uses for residential districts. This one in particular is, why I say it's for residential districts is because of the following. If we add a conditional use to the most stringent district, in this case the R90 district, which is what specifically this is for, there's language for the R60 district and the R20, which automatically carries forth conditional uses from the previous district, in this case the R90. So in other words, it goes from R9, it applies to all districts, starting with R90 and then R60 and R20. So, and what this does is allows the option as a conditional use for an applicant to place a parking lot. I'll get into some of the specifics in a minute, but a parking lot as a I think we use the word primary use in a residential district. In other words, there doesn't have to be another use on the site for that. It can be just a parking lot, just a parking lot on that particular parcel. So this was brought forth to the Planning Commission for their consideration. Part of the reason it was brought forth is we have had an issue with this in the past, several years back, where it seemed as if there was a hole in our ordinance, perhaps something that wasn't supposed to be there. And then recently there was an inquiry about it, not a specific proposal at this point, but an inquiry. And so that prompted me to reach out and discuss the matter with First District, who we talk to from time to time for zoning advice. They have some people who are a little better versed in some of these things, and they had in their review they had indicated that probably should have been something that should have been in the ordinance when we first adopted it in 2009 with their assistance. It was just an oversight, I guess is how they described it. And they proceeded to also explain that in many of the jurisdictions that they work in, they do have parking lots as a as a primary use in residential districts for people to pursue approval via an appeal to the Board of Adjustment as a conditional use application. So I know I'm throwing a lot of use terms around there, and it may get confusing, but I know Commissioner Corbin is familiar as the Planning Commission liaison, and Mayor Dennert comes to a lot of the meetings now, and they've heard this a couple different times now, so they're most apt to probably pick up on this. But all of you all have heard discussions of the ideas of the principal permitted use and the conditional use in the past as well. So I just thought it was worth bringing that up. Getting into the specifics itself, on item number 16, there's some conditions that would have to be met by anybody who would seek to try to get this conditional use type of approval. One would be they would have to put up a fence, a wall, or shrubbery, a minimum of 4 feet in height, as determined by the Board of Adjustment, and with a certain character and appeal. So that would be a discretionary item. What exactly would be acceptable as determined by the Board of Adjustment, but a minimum of 4 feet in height for that. Secondly, it'd have to be set back from the property line 5 feet, except if there is a fence in place, it may be reduced to 2 feet. So it could be a little bit closer if that was the case. And then also, if lighting would be proposed, which it's not required to be proposed, but would it be proposed, it has to be what's referred to as shoebox lighting, and how I would describe that as lighting that is directed directly downward onto the surface. And then that would keep it would help avoid, I guess you could use the term light pollution, where, it's just like floodlights that would shine out into the neighborhood and such like that. In other words, it would just light the parking surface and the cars that would be on there. So that gets into the specifics of the proposal. The Planning Commission did recommend approval at their hearing, and so this before you is just first reading. The statutes and the ordinances require that you have to have a second reading and a hearing as well, and typically the commission has opted to have that hearing at the second reading. So with that, I'd be happy to try to stand by for questions.
Do I have let's get a motion. Let's get a motion on the table.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to approve first reading and set the date of hearing for June 29th? Ordinance number 1623, amend Appendix B zoning, Article 2, District Regulation, Section 17.16.
What's the date of hearing?
The June 26th. I mean June 29th, excuse me.
That's what I thought you said. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, if they put the motion in a second, I might add, many of you know I will actually not be at that meeting. We have a planned extended trip, but so I don't know if that has any bearing. I think you all can proceed, but if that's anything you want to consider, I suppose you could change that and give an extra week, but that would be up to you. I'd hate for there to be questions at a hearing that remain unanswered and may delay the hearing or whatever it may be. But if you're comfortable proceeding with the hearing and comfortable with the explanation that I just provided, and you can recall that, you're comfortable in that fashion, go ahead and proceed with that date. I just thought that would be something for you to know.
This is Commissioner Corbin. I make a motion to move forward. I guess if we do have any issues and you're not available, perhaps we can have somebody from the planning district come speak on it. So I don't see that happening.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any comments, discussion?
Yeah, when you go to issue a building permit for a fence, is that right on the property line, or is that got an offset of 2 or 3 foot?
Yeah, that's a good question. It cannot be right on the property line, because if the fence would literally be right on the line, if you can picture, a post would be half onto the neighbor's property and half onto the subject property. So the fence, there is no setback requirements in most yard spaces for fences. And when I say most yard space, front yards, of course, there is some criteria that we have and so on. But if it's just a fence in the backyard, it can be just inside the property line. Now, I always do caution applicants and folks that, technically if you put it 1 inch inside your property, and first of all, if you know exactly where your property line is, which is not always a given, because the only way to do that would be to find property pins and pull a string line and so on. But if you do put it, in my example, 1 inch inside the line, you're probably going to be walking on your neighbor's property to put it up, or in the future to maintain it and such. So I always caution, things happen with neighbors sometimes, and if you know where I'm going with that. So.
Okay, I just wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Any further comments or discussion? Not hearing any. Jen, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Thill?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin,
Aye.
Mayor Denner.
Aye. Item 4, Mike, you want to bring us up to speed on the approved Park and Rec Board recommendation for the use of the sports complex?
So, Park Board met last Tuesday. They decided to postpone all tournaments that are going to be held at our sports complexes for anybody out of town till for the month of July. So basically, that'll be the end of the baseball and softball season. So that was just wanted to tell everybody that we don't have to worry about. They're still going to hold their city league tournaments, but it's just not going to be I consider them like travel team tournaments and stuff like that. People coming into town. So, and that's basically what all that one's got to cover.
Did we need a motion on that before?
I had used approve on the
Okay.
agenda. We can deviate away from that if you want to, if it's already been decided.
Well, the Park Board advised that to the commission that they would like to not see any travel
Okay.
team tournaments in the. Ultimately, it comes down to the commission's decision. If
I
they
think we'd
want.
ask for a motion. Agree?
So I mean, you're the ones that are going to catch the heat for having one or not having one. So
Okay.
if there is anything that arises.
Do I have a motion to approve the Park and the Rec Board recommendation for the use of the sports complex?
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion? Jen, you want to take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Corbin,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner,
Aye.
Commissioner Sill,
Aye.
Mayor Denner.
Aye. Item 5, discuss the public use of city facilities. Mike? do you-
So for starters, the park board talked about the enclosed shelters. They would like to open them up and remind people to practice social distancing, but if it's family and oriented and all that stuff, it's used at your own risk and basically your own discretion. So they would like them opened up. That was their first suggestion, so like we can have family reunions and all that. Second thing is, it probably wasn't discussed a lot on the park board, but the city, there's been some talk about the city armory opening back up pre-July 1st. So that's up to the park, or the commission's decision, the second thing.
Do you want to speak a little bit about this situation you called me about, so we understand it?
Because there is other people that want in there, so I'm not trying to, if you let the high school in there, they're expecting, they want to know why the high school can be in there and they can't be, and I've already had a phone call about it, so.
Well, I was reached out from Mr. Ricky from the school that their main gym was the floor being redone, wasn't quite ready yet, and he was reaching out to check for somewhere else to have practice. And after talking with Mike, my understanding last time we talked about the city armory, we were going to open it up July 1st anyway, and to help them out, I thought we could go ahead and open it up just a little bit sooner.
I'm fine with that decision if the commission's good with it.
We are within the parameters of what we've decided in the past, so I don't think we need to take any action on this. I just thought people should understand why it was, and Mayor called and we talked about it, why we made that move.
And there was, I don't,
I think we should, yeah.
and then there's one more thing, Martin Park is going to be held in, later on in July. I can't remember the exact date, I think it was, is Melissa online? not sure. Okay.
Was it that last weekend in July?
So, Martin the Park, and she's already talked about doing different measures of social distancing, and I suggest that it's ultimately a person's discretion if they want to go to Martin the Park. It's for the Madison Christian School, a fundraiser. They're going to cut the vendors down by a third and spread them out more, and they did that, but they'd like a commission's approval to go to the whole Martin the Park. The park board said that they approved to move forward with it, but with the COVID and everything else, I'd just like to bring it to the commission's attention.
On getting back to the enclosed shelters, do we, after they're used, does the city go out and clean those?
Correct.
Okay,
Clean them before and after.
so, okay.
And it is also the renter's responsibility to clean up after themselves too. It's not just.
And does that go with the Mart in the park?
They'll have to clean up after
They'll
themselves,
clean.
and they'll have to provide their own porta potties, and they've done it for multiple years.
Okay.
We've had no issues. It's just the COVID is what the worries about it was.
And you said that was July?
Yeah, it's like July. It's the last week of July. I have it wrote down.
Okay.
It might even be in the minutes too.
It's not.
It's in my notes.
There was significant discussion about it, both by the organization that brought it forth to us and by the Park and Rec Board.
July 25th.
Thank you.
Okay.
But they decided to go ahead with the caveat, of course, that if a spike begins to happen, the shutdown, we just wouldn't do it. And that could happen a week ahead of time, or 2 weeks, but given the things we're seeing nationally, a few things that are starting to happen, I think we need to be watchful and vigilant, and if we don't feel safe, then we shut down. But as Mike said, it is a voluntary thing, you know, where people can come to it or not come to it. And I feel badly, and you know, it's at home too on it, but they did away with a couple things.
The bouncy houses, all, you know, where there's going to be multiple touch areas for the children.
Any food will be packaged.
The food, the way they're going to serve food, the way the band, like they always had music playing and stuff, they're going to change a lot of stuff. They've put a lot of thought into this process of trying to still be able to hold this event, but still practice social distancing at the best ability that they can.
I think as an organization, they're what we would probably describe as doing their very best to offer due diligence. There it is. That's it. You know, it is a major fundraiser for the Christian school, and we want to deprive them of that. At the same time, they understand that it's a public health concern. It could present a public health concern depending to a great deal on how they handle it. So I hope they can make it work, and we'll have to see. It did pass unanimously through the Parks and Rec Board.
I guess I have no problem opening up the city armory July 1st, opening up the enclosed shelters, and having the Martin Park.
You gonna open city armory to auction sales and everything? I have no problem either way, just so the auctioneers know that they can use it if they.
I think if you let the high school in there next week, you're going to have to let the softball, and they're all going to be in here.
So what we're talking about is effective immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, no? Just so
That's
I have
that's
to
my
mention,
suggestion.
your
Because Mike
suggestion
Rickey is supposed to be going in there, from what I'm hearing, in the next week.
Yeah.
Way before July, you know, a couple weeks before July 1st.
So city armory and park shelters would be effective immediately,
Yep.
if that's what you decide.
Yep, and that's. With the stipulation that if there's a spike in COVID, all this could change.
I have no problem with that, so. Did you want a motion on that, Jen?
How about a consensus? If
Okay.
anybody is not in favor of that, can we handle it that way? Since,
Yep.
again, the sheet says discuss.
Yep. Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Waldner, any thoughts? Are you okay?
You know, this whole situation's kind of weird. We're in uncharted territory. I'm alright with opening it up, but if things take a turn for the worse, I think we need to consider reeling it back in.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Pretty much same thoughts here, you know, whatever the park board and Commissioner Johnson, he's been closer to it, and obviously if we start getting some spikes and things, make sure that if somebody's got something scheduled and something happens, we had on a immediate notice can close the doors on it.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Anything else?
You got an announcement? We're good. That's good. We're not good on them agenda items, I think.
Okay. Public comment?
Nothing, sir?
What about online? Anybody?
Is there anybody online that would like to make public comment?
Okay. I did have one announcement. Last Friday, a group from DSU, one gentleman that was heading it from the library, put on a prayer service for George Floyd on Friday night. Everything went very well. I want to reach out and thank our police department, sheriff's office, highway patrol, and anyone else that was involved in that on Friday night to help keep things going. It went very smooth, and we got through it. Is there any other announcements?
I do want to point out that the there's the Park and Rec Board expressed a concern about moving ahead with the playground at Memorial Park, and so we will be meeting to talk about that some more. But we would like to get moving on that as soon as we can. An opportunity to do for some service to some people that might not be able to use the parks normally, and on top of that, we have some money at stake in the thing with the state. So we just wanted to make the commission aware that we are going to be moving ahead on this, okay? And hopefully in the very near future. That's all.
Okay. Any other announcements? Not hearing any. Nothing for exec session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Have a good evening.